Kristi Davis is a mom, wife, business owner, and survivor. Living in northern Wisconsin, she owns and operates a lakeside resort. Growing up, she always battled obesity, and so did her entire farming family. She had the entrepreneurial spirit and went on to build and manage a family style restaurant throughout her 20s. She then entered into a corporate position in the insurance industry when she weighed an all-time high of over 300 pounds, and her self-love was at an extreme low. Today, she's going to share with us how she went from being over 300 pounds, not feeling good about herself, not feeling like she was doing her life's work, to where now she actually is the author of a book called Redeemed: Guide to Self-Love Journey to True Happiness. And she's a coach for people who want to be redeemed through their eating and plant-based vegan lifestyle. So stick around. You're in for quite a treat.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
Kristi, you do have an amazing story. You've gone from a life where things just weren't working that great for you to now you're just out there rocking it. So let's start with you sharing a bit about when you went vegan, why you went vegan, and what the results were.
Yes. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure. So it was, I want to say it's been over 2 years now. Well, I guess even back up with before that, I was always a heavy child. I was the heaviest one in my class. I come from a heavy family. Growing up, teenage, obviously young adolescent or young adult, I was always heavy. I owned a restaurant. So even though I was large, I still was very active. But I knew how to cook. So obviously I kept my weight on. And so then I tried a lot of diets. I mean, I was on, you name it, I tried it, counting, weighing, measuring, processed pills, you name it, I did it. And nothing ever worked. Then, of course, a couple of years ago, keto was really getting big. So I tried that. When you know better, you do better. But it's one of the processed things I went through. And I got really sick actually on keto to the point where it started with plantar fasciitis. Then it got to the point where at the worst, I was losing my sense of speech. I could think of words, but I couldn't get them out. I was blacking out. A lot of really scary things were happening. And my doctors couldn't figure it out. Testing, I spent a lot of money on testings and they couldn't figure it out. So finally I prayed on it and I said, what could it be? Lord, like I'm very in touch with the Lord. And I felt, let food be thy medicine. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And so I looked it up and it was basically eat, the plant-based diet. And so I'm like, okay, well, now I'm in northern Wisconsin. So I don't know if you can tell by my accent, but I'm a Wisconsinite. And so our main food group is cheese. So I've never even met a vegan in my life. So for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to do this. It was the fact that I knew I had to change something. It no longer was about weight loss. It was about taking back my health. Mm-hmm. So I started watching documentaries, anything I could get my hands on, Forks Over Knives and What the Health and, Game Changers and Cowspiracy. I mean, you name it, I watched it and I dug into it and I just immersed myself with it's so crazy how we don't know what's in our food and, what we're marketed and all this stuff. So it was really an eye opener. And overnight, I changed my way of eating. I told my husband, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to turn vegan. And he was like, okay, but I'm not. And I said, that's okay. You don't have to. And so we did make an agreement though, because of obviously I felt so passionate about what was happening and I could not it was poison and I could not bring that into my home and feed that to my husband and my son. So we made a great agreement that I wouldn't buy it and I wouldn't cook it. But if we went out to eat, they could have whatever they want and I would keep my thoughts to myself. So that was a great agreement that we had within our family. And I'm so thankful that I have a really supportive husband because I know not everybody has that. So I switched overnight and within a month, 45 days, my symptoms were going away and I was feeling this sense of light and I felt good. And I was like, this is crazy. So I just kept going, and I really went plant-based to the point where I was even cutting out salts and oils and sugars, and just really, if I could see it out of the garden, that's what I was eating. I just was really clean. And yeah, I went on to lose now over 115 pounds,
That's
which is so
incredible.
cool. Yeah. And it's funny because as the weight was coming off, I was like, wait, what? Wait, what? Like, it was almost like it was easy. And I've never been able to lose weight. So for this to be, if I was never the yo-yo dieter, like it just never went off. And so, but I think another big thing I contributed to was I started yoga. And so I think that was a big thing too, is like, you don't have to beat yourself up. You can love your body and appreciate your body for all that it's able to do, and find peace within yourself. Because I've noticed whenever I did yoga, my number on my scale went a little bit down the next day. And that's when it was going to, but the days I skipped yoga or I didn't do yoga, it stayed at a plateau. So really it was releasing that stress off your body, that emotional stress, along with the toxins that we're eating. Like, it's a whole mind body thing that we have going on. And so, yeah, so it really wasn't, after a while, it wasn't even how much I was losing, is what I was gaining as far as my self-esteem and my self-love and this clarity and all that stuff. So that's kind of where.
Well, and I love your story, and I love the whole thing about the plantar fascia. I never can pronounce that, but I had it really bad. I actually had gout at one point. I had, a lot of things that were just so hard on my body. And I go on daily runs. I've been a runner for a few years now. I started when I was 60 and did my first full marathon at the age of 61. It was just a crazy experience. But it was only 3 years ago that I went vegan and eliminated all meat and dairy. And what a difference. I mean, when I used to run long distances, even, 2 or 3 miles, I would feel it for a few days. And almost immediately when I cut out the cheese, the meat, the dairy, all of that inflammation went away and my recovery was unflippin' believable. And this morning I was actually thinking about that. I did a 3-mile run this morning and I was thinking about how I don't have the aches and pains I used to. So it's pretty interesting. Now, when you were doing the keto diet, were you doing the keto where you do a lot of meat, you do a lot of bacon, you do a lot of cheese? Tell me about that.
Unfortunately, yes, that's exactly what I was doing. I even found a product called like keto shakes, where it was like powder that was like very high fat content. And then you added like dairy to that on top of it. So it's like, and it was just like, because when you, I didn't do the healthy keto. I mean, there is such a thing as healthy keto where you do a lot of like avocados and things like that. Like that wasn't the keto I did. Right. And I wasn't educated. So yeah, but yeah, that's the type I did.
I have a really good friend. We've known each other for probably 15, 20 years, and she's a digital marketer, and she is like one of the biggest influencers in the keto movement. And it's about low carb something or other, but high fat. And I actually had to get out of her group because I couldn't look at the pictures that she was posting of, today I had 8 eggs for breakfast and I had cheese on the side and I had bacon. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she and I have had conversations. She knows that I'm vegan. I know that she does the keto and to the extreme. And I have to step back and let her do her. But it pains me to see that because I think of all the animal cruelty that goes into it. And I'm curious with what you do, Kristi, how much of that is a result of wanting to be compassionate to animals, or does that even play into your being a vegan?
Oh, it absolutely actually does play into it. I think that's a huge thing, because I think when we start being educated about not only what it does to our body, but then also what factory farming is. I mean, again, I'm in Wisconsin, like we have cow farms everywhere, we see farms everywhere. And there is a difference between like the family farm and a factory farm.
Right.
And that's a big thing too, because I think when people see an item, they think of that cute little that family farm and they love on their cow. And that's not the case. Of you go to get a burger at a restaurant, honey, that's not a cow that was loved on. That was a cow that was cruel. And then on top of that though, too, it's like, but even if it was a cow that was loved on, why do I have to eat it? There's no need for that. It's like, I love my dog. I know my dog has a personality and I don't want him to get hurt. Oh my God. But yet I would I would eat it. I would eat a different animal. Like, so to me, like once that whole like correlation came together, I was like, why would I ever want to do that? So even because dairy is an addictive thing because it's naturally addictive because obviously hormones and da. But anyhow, that's a different topic. But so, I mean, I see cheese everywhere I go. And so there was definitely a moment when I was like, oh God, I miss cheese. But then when you see it and you start thinking of the whole cycle of where it comes from, and then what still happens, because people think, oh, well, dairy is okay because it doesn't hurt animals. But really it does, because what happens when you think that cow is no longer producing milk, it turns into a hamburger. Like,
right.
They don't get to like live their life happily for the next 20 years. Like, that's not what the process is. So for me now to have this whole like understanding and not just like this childhood book idea of where our meat and dairy comes from, it's actually the reality of it. That to me definitely plays a part in it, because even if there's moments in my own, journey that, like, I'm like, oh, well, I'm in a social environment, no, I'm like, no, then I think of the animal, even if I'm not putting myself first.
Absolutely.
I try to put myself first most of the time, but there are times that really helps kick in too.
Well, and I just had a conversation with a woman who said she was vegan, and she goes, but occasionally if I go to somebody's house and they have something, I don't want to hurt their feelings. In my culture, it's rude to say no. And we were talking about her being on my show. I said, I'm sorry, but that's where I draw the line. I said, a vegan is a vegan is a vegan. And it's like, it's like being in recovery. I actually have 38 years of sobriety. And if I went to somebody's house and they said, oh, here's a new wine that we got, just have a little glass. It's like, oh, no, there's no conversation on that. Yeah. But I'm curious, how do people find you, first of all, Kristi?
Yeah. So throughout my journey, then I became a coach. So I became a coach. First it was with vegan nutrition health coaching to help people kind of transition over. And then I realized it was more mindset. Like, all of the things that we're talking about is 100% mindset. Right. People know they're supposed to eat broccoli to be healthy. Everybody knows that. I mean, even keto, hardcore people know they need to eat broccoli to be healthy. It's a mindset thing. So then I became more of a mindset insight coach. And that's really where I dove into my stuff, learning about food addictions and emotional eating and all of that stuff. So then I created a business called Redeemed Coaching. So you can find me at redeemedcoaching.com. And I started, because redeemed really means to come back. No matter how far you've gone, you can always come back. Even for the people that are trying to get on this path and their mindset's not there and they're still trying to people please and doing all that other stuff, and they really want to make this their lifestyle, we got to get our mindset right. And even if people think, oh, well, you know what, I did something, I ate my breakfast and I had this when I was around peer pressure. Oh, forget it. I'll start Monday. It's like, stop. You can redeem yourself this very second. Let's come back and learn from why we did that. And let's start moving forward versus beating ourselves up about choices we've made. So that's where redeemed coaching comes from. And also I'm a Christian, so I've been redeemed. So that's a beautiful reason why my company is Redeemed Coaching.
Wonderful.
And so then I do that, but then I wrote my book and it was a bestseller. It was called Redeemed. It's the guide to self-love and journey to true happiness. And I talk about plant-based in there because you need to know how to love yourself. And that is knowing that you're worthy of eating good stuff versus eating the toxins that people call food. And so that was all part of that. So yeah, that's kind of where people.
I love it. Well, and it's so amazing because lately I've been attracting a lot of Christians on my show, which is so interesting because it's not necessarily a Christian-based show. However, I'm very open to all different lifestyles and religions sharing their story, because the one common denominator we have is that compassionate living, compassionate eating, and compassion to the environment. Now, I'm curious, and I want to repeat to people that it's redeemedcoaching.com. And I want to remind you, you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health show. This is Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Kristi Davis. And we're going to have a conversation about the Bible right now. I really want to dig into that because I know there's the Daniel fast. I actually just interviewed two wonderful ladies who teach the Daniel fast. That's their business model, and they're both faith-based Christian women. And I read something recently, and I don't know how true this is, so maybe you can help me out here, that Jesus was actually vegan. I don't know if that is true or not, but apparently he ate a plant-based diet. And apparently there's quite a bit in the Bible about plant-based eating. share with me what you know about that.
Thank you for bringing that up because, it's funny that even came to my heart when I said it. And then, so anyhow, I actually have had quite a bit of conversation with people within my church. Because to actually even give you more information, when we get together for like Bible studies, I will always bring a plant-based dish to pass, always, because I'm like, that I have something to eat, that I feed love to my friends. And they also get a taste of like what I eat, because people think I just eat lettuce all day long. So that's huge. So we've had a lot of conversations within the church world of plant-based, because a lot of people in my church network say God put animals on this earth to eat. He said what animals were clean. He said we're supposed to eat animals. And we've had this conversation. And so, yeah, when I've actually researched the Daniel diet and things like that, that is in there as well. So I think you can read either way. To be perfectly honest, I don't usually have debates with people. I mean, I know we're not debating, but I mean, like, I usually don't go one way or another, because I feel that Jesus was very much of, you live a very loving and wholesome life. And also is the fact of, he wasn't about factory farming. He wasn't about antibiotics. He wasn't about growth hormones. He wasn't about any of this stuff.
Right.
So when people want to use that argument with me, I say, okay, if you feel that animals are put on this earth to eat, because there are parts of the Bible where it says, sacrificing the animals. Like, there are parts of the Bible that say that. I say, okay, I get where you're saying that. But this isn't the world that he's talking about that we're living in today,
right,
about what
right.
we're doing to our animals.
Right.
And so then I'll bring up all the other things, and they're like, fair enough. And I'm like, so if you want to say that you've raised this cow with love, and this is how you feed your family for the year and all this other thing, okay, you know what? This is your journey. That's fine. But don't tell me that you should be eating bacon cheeseburgers and eating all this mass of gluttony of meat.
You just hit the
that's
word.
Biblical.
You just hit the word. I was waiting for that.
Gluttony. Yes, the gluttony of the meat. Like, you know how many what did they say? Like, how many millions of chickens are killed a day?
I just got through talking with Dr. Rao, who's with climatehealers.org, and he was at the COP26 with the cow in the room. They had that big cow blow up cow, and he actually is an engineer by trade. He graduated from Stanford University many years ago. He's a PhD, and he said the reality is that we cannot wait. We are at a critical point. We have to change. We have to become vegan, and it's about the environment. And he gave me the number, and I can't remember. It's like water animals, it's 1 to 3 trillion a year. And with land animals, I think it's something like, 90 billion or something, 99 billion. It's some outrageous number. And with the food waste and all that. But, it's so interesting about the gluttony, because one of the 7 deadly sins is gluttony. And then in one of the commandments, thou shalt not murder. And the way animals are raised and then literally murdered, that's murder, So I find it intriguing that we can actually, there's so many spins and takes on the whole reason to go vegan. And if nothing else, to minimize our risk should we get COVID. I mean, I'm a real believer that if people had a strong immune system, regardless of if they want to get the vaccine or don't want to get the vaccine, that's not the conversation. The conversation is, if you're diagnosed with anything, you increase your chances of a healthy life post whatever you were diagnosed with. And in many cases, you won't get diagnosed, like with diabetes, definitely reversible. So in your coaching, let's talk about that, because I'm really intrigued how you went from being a health coach to now a mindset coach. Somebody wants to change the way they're eating. They've seen a documentary. Let's say they've seen the newest one, which is they're out to kill us, or they're trying to kill us. Don't know if you've seen that, but phenomenal documentary. And I just watched The Invisible Vegan. It's about the African-American community and why a lot of them didn't go vegan. And actually, when they were in Africa before slave days, and before they were brought over here and forced to eat meat, a lot of them were plant-based. I mean, there's a whole history that most of us know nothing about, and even the African-American community knows nothing about, but now they're starting to realize, oh my gosh, look at the lies we've been fed. Now, let's say somebody has watched one of the documentaries, they've read one of the books, and they want to change, but they don't know where to start, and they really want to get their mindset straight. What do you recommend? What are 3 things that they could do?
Well, I would say always the first thing I always tell people is documentaries, because that's the facts, that's the science, that's the experts. And once people watch that, usually that light bulb starts coming on and they start going, okay, so now, how do I switch over? After that, honestly, it turns into why. We need to figure out our why. Some people, it's the animals. Some people, it's my health. Some people, it's, I want to be able to see my grandkids raised. It's always, there's a why. So what is the priority of why you want to change? And we need to start with that, because I think some people just think, well, because I should. Okay, well, I should do a lot of things. I should clip coupons to save money, but doesn't mean I'm doing it. So just because you should do something doesn't mean you're doing it. So I think when we start really focusing on our why, and then that becomes now what we focus on in your next bite. What's your next meal? What are you going to do next? And I'm even to the point where I've worked with different types of people. There's people that want to slowly steer the ship. Okay, well, I'll go, I'll go from eating my burger to eating an Impossible Burger at Burger King. Okay, great. And then they're doing that for a while, but then they never really have the health benefits because they're still eating a lot of processed stuff and a lot of deep fried stuff. And so they say, see, it's not working. And I'm like, okay, well, time out. If you're going to stop at Burger King every day, whether it's an Impossible Burger or Whopper, you're not going to lose weight. You're not going to find the health benefits. So then I usually say, let's detox, because that's another big thing too, is a lot of times we're addicted to the sugars and we're addicted to the salts and we're addicted to the cheese. I mean, the 3 top addictive foods is sugar, dairy, and wheat. So if you think of all the comfort foods out there, it's going to contain 2, if not 3 of those things. So I always talk about, okay, well, is it because you're addicted? If you think about it, if you tell an addict they can't have something tomorrow, they'll be like, maybe this isn't for me, because they're not ready.
Got it. I'll tell you, for many years, I needed to stop drinking and doing drugs. And I just was like, I ain't having any of that, because it's like, what will I do? It's like, I won't know how to live. And truth be told, I didn't know how to live. And it took really just being taken to my knees and stripping it all away. It, for me, that's what it took. So in your coaching, okay, so somebody, when they go to your website, what will they find when they first get to your site, and what are their options of working with you?
Yeah. So when you get to my site, there's different options. My main page is just kind of talking about what coaching is, because coaching is different than therapy. So I think that's a big thing that people need to understand. Coaching is more of you finding the answers within yourself, and I'm just holding a space. Coaching is more of it's taking action, and it's more of creating a future of how you're going to do things and action steps, versus therapy. I'm not talking about what happened when your childhood. We might, we might touch on that, but so I just want to make sure that's very clear. People understand what coaching is. And so the second part is you're going to see a couple different things on there. You're going to see redeemed eating, which it's a group program that I run a couple times a year. So then we get groups of people together, and I have a private Facebook group where I put on lots of recipes, and I do, cooking demonstrations and things like that, because when you turn plant-based, I didn't know how to cook. I was in my kitchen in tears going, I don't know how to cook anymore. I used to be an amazing cook, and now nothing tastes right. So I had to relearn how to cook. And so I do a lot of cooking demonstrations, so things still taste good and things like that. So that's part of the redeemed eating. But again, that's just, anybody can open up a cookbook. So that's why I always say it goes to a different level. I also have my retreats. So like I say, I own a resort in northern Wisconsin, actually. So I have cabins at the lake. So I actually do detox retreats, which are small retreats, up to 4 people of your choosing. I don't do big groups and, big mass parties. I don't do that. But I have people come here. I do personalized yoga, I do chair yoga. So it doesn't even matter what your physical level is. And then I teach plant-based nutrition and cooking, and we cook together, and you have all the food provided to you. So you don't feel overwhelmed in the grocery store. And I've even taken people grocery shopping and shown them how to food prep and all of those basic things that sometimes we take for granted. But some people are like, I grew up out of my mom, let's say, I cooked on macaroni and cheese. I don't even know how to pick out a ripe pineapple.
Right.
But so like I do that with people so they kind of understand that. And then I also like do personal development things, whether it be, like figuring out, what's holding you back or kind of getting through those mindset things. So anyhow, so I do those retreats. So you'll find retreat information on there. I have a digital course where they can actually do a 21-day mindset reset.
Wonderful.
And that's all about your positive thinking. And every single day of the 21 days, you get a different email with a video of me talking about a different topic. So it's not all about plant-based, but it is about how we think about ourselves, how we think about the world around us, because we need to start. We're on such autopilot when it comes to what the media is telling us to do. Our friends are telling us what to do. Our family has told us what our values are, and we don't even know who we are. So doing that reset's really big. So I really encourage people to do that. And that's on my website. My book, you can find that on Amazon, but there is a link on my website. And then there's all about me and my story.
Wonderful.
But a big part I want to tell people is that there is a contact me button. And I don't charge for, a gift of my time. They want to schedule a call with me. They want to ask me questions. They want to tell me about what they're going through and seeing if working with me would be something that would be a good fit. There's no cost for that, because my mission and my purpose in this world is to serve, and I want people to get healthy. Like
I love
if
that.
I can,
I love that.
If I can help people, like if they even can't afford to work with me, that's fine. But if they want to talk to me for an hour, I would love to give them some time, because maybe that little bit is just enough to get them on the ball of the next time they eat something, they think of a little differently and they can take their health back in whatever way they can.
Well, I loved what you said about taking people to the grocery store to teach them how to shop, because I know that before I went plant-based vegan, I really didn't like to cook. And it has to do with an old marriage. I was 19 at the time, and, ex-husband who, no matter how much effort I put into something, it was never good enough. I mean, there's a whole story behind that. If you want to get into therapy, we can do that right now. But quite seriously, I just didn't like to cook. And so until I was 64, from the time we got divorced to I turned 64, it's like, I don't cook. That's just not something I do. Now I love to cook. It's like, it truly is like a meditation to me. It's an art form to me. And I usually get ideas when I'm out on a run, but when I go to the grocery store, I am filled with so much gratitude and appreciation for what I can put in my cart. And I love hanging out in the veggie section. It's like I just fill my cart with all these colorful fruits and vegetables. And then I go to the bins and I get the beans and legumes. And it's crazy, because I really get excited about going grocery shopping and seeing how much color I can put in my cart and how few boxes I can put in my cart. And it's always interesting when people will say, my gosh, look at how healthy you eat. You look so healthy. What do you do? And that's my opportunity to actually share the message. And so I'm curious, in closing, I have a couple more questions for you, but in addition to the weight loss, because obviously that was a huge change for you, what was the greatest benefit of the releasing of the weight, as far as like your ability to do things, how it has transformed your life? What would you say is the one greatest benefit, besides obviously losing the weight and getting healthier, but whether it be your mindset, whether it be how you're able to serve people?
Confidence, hands down confidence. I was always, people would think I was always pretty confident, but I always held behind a mask. I could keep a smile. Yep, I got this. But deep down, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know they're judging me, or I'm not good enough, or all those things that, you've always been told in your past. And now I am like, I am who I am. And I always use the phrase, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I am somebody's double shot of whiskey. Like, I am who I am. You love me, that's great. You don't, I'm okay with that. Like, you don't have to love me. And before, I'd always try and like mold just to people please, and overcoming people pleasing was a big part of my journey. And like all of this stuff that people wouldn't relate to eating broccoli, but it truly is, because you find your worthiness and you find yourself and you find your voice to say, no, I don't eat that. And I'm, like, even like, at the holidays, people will say, well, you're going to have a cheat day. And I'm like, I get the concept of what you're trying to say, but it's like saying, hey, you want some mouse poisoning? No,
Right.
I'm good. Thank you.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
so like it truly all starts with your mindset. It's not about the broccoli. And that's
Right.
where I think that's
Right.
really huge to me. If people almost have that light bulb moment and saying, well, that's why I've been heavy my whole life. And it's not because I'm a failure. No, you're not. You're not but we feel that about ourselves because this diet didn't work. Well, I mean, just a side note, majority of our diets are deprivation diets.
Yes.
They say, oh, okay, well, you can have a Snickers bar as long as it fits into your calorie consumption in your day. That doesn't even make any sense when you have a sugar addiction. It's almost like saying you can only breathe every 10 seconds. Well, pretty soon you're going to start gasping for air and then you're going to be done. Like eating is a need. We need to stay alive. That's fueling for our body. So if we're not giving ourselves fuel, we're going to things thinking we're still hungry because we're not giving our body the nutrition. And then we're feeding the addiction. And then we're depriving the addiction. We're just giving ourselves a little addiction every day. And pretty soon we say, screw it, I can't do it. And then we internalize and say, I'm a failure.
Right.
Oh, honey,
Right.
you are destined
I
not
love
to
what you're
succeed.
saying. I love what you're saying because I can relate to all of it. I've been a yo-yo dieter most of my life until I went plant-based, and I actually was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. My highest weight was in my 200s. I was 212, and now I have a healthy weight of 160, and it's like I'm happy with that weight because I'm really healthy. I'm fit and have the energy and all that. But it was like, what I realized with the plant-based eating is it is not a diet of deprivation by any stretch. If anything, I eat so much and I get all these nutrients and I'm not sluggish after a meal. I don't feel guilty after a meal. And, there's so much to unwrap around the whole plant-based lifestyle because there's energetically, we're not putting that death and that murder and that anxiety and stress into our body. And a lot of people who are plant-based vegan through the pandemic have handled it with much more grace than they would have, and I know for me, my business took a hit. I mean, I've had my business 27 years. I'm a keynote speaker. And when the pandemic hit, conferences got canceled. I had a $20,000 contract on the table that never went through. It was like, oh my gosh. And, so that was the level I was playing at. And I had to reinvent myself and I had to trust God. It was like, okay, God, I surrender, because when I tried to figure it out myself, I was totally messing it up. Mm-hmm. And I said, God, just show me what I'm supposed to do. And I immersed myself into the plant-based industry with my shows and my business and all that. So anyway, this has been so delightful. And final thought. If there is one question I have not asked you, what question should I be asking you?
Oh, good question.
Good question.
I guess
one you just asked.
yeah. I guess the thing is, there's really not a question, I guess, that would be added, but I think that people need to people can take anything away, I guess, from hearing this today, would be society teaches us that we need to lose weight in order to love ourselves lose weight to be happy with ourselves. And then once we're happy with ourselves, then we'll be healthy as we're losing weight, and then we'll love ourselves. And that's not the case. Like, we need to love ourselves. We need to accept ourselves for the amazing body that we currently have. And then with that, we then need to take back our health with our nutrition. And in turn, then weight loss is going to come after that. So I think that's a big thing too, is we need to start just understanding that if we woke up today, if God gave us the breath right now, it's not too late. Right. And if we just accept and honor that breath and the body that we were given, so many people can beat themselves up about what they look like. Honey, people wish they looked like you. People wish they had the mobility that you have. People wish, take what you have and honor that. And then you can only get healthier from there. Absolutely. Because of the choices you make.
Absolutely. Adele, in her interview, she actually said that. She said, when I started working on me internally and got right with me, the weight just started releasing. And she goes, it has nothing to do with body image or anything. It has to do with I took care of myself internally. So, well, Kristi, this has been delightful. And I just want to say thank you for joining me on the podcast show, Plant-Based Eating for Health. And I encourage people, go to redeemedcoaching.com. I got that right, didn't I? redeemedcoaching.com, and check out all the resources. Get on Kristi's list and just go out there and do what you're here to do. Be aligned with how you live, take care of the animals, take care of the planet, and most of all, take care of yourself and your spirit and your connection to God. This is Kathleen Gage, wishing you a great, great day.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.